Okay, you're welcome back. Okay, in the last video we created the empty configuration for the base server by going to our settings and changing various options. At this stage we should have a virtual disk and an ISO for Server 2012. So all we need to do now at this stage is click on Start. Our virtual machine will start to load, and when it starts to load it will read from the ISO file as though it was a DVD, and it will start the install, as you can see, of Server 2012. There's a few questions asked at the very start, then it extracts the files, installs all the required files, and then it prompts us for a password. So you can see here language to install. We've only got one language because this was downloaded from a US Microsoft site. We can change our keyboard and time and currency formats. So I'm going to go for English Ireland, and you can see that the keyboard has changed as well. We go next on that, and basically we're just going to do an install. Now we'll be prompted again for a couple of questions once the startup is complete, and once those questions are answered, we will then basically leave it to itself to do the install. So it's a very simple install. In this version of the ISO we've got 4 editions. Okay, and we can see here by expanding this out, it says Server 2012 released to Standard Evaluation Core, Standard Evaluation with a GUI, Data Center with a core, and Data Center with a GUI. Now we want to have a GUI so we can run through the graphical interfaces. So the difference between Standard Edition and Data Center is basically the number of processors and the amount of memory that is supported. So we can simply go with a Standard Edition evaluation with a GUI, so make sure you're selecting the one with a GUI. If you want it, you can go with Data Center. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, so next on that, and we accept the license agreement, and I'm assuming everybody will read through the whole license agreement, and we accept the license agreement. Next on that. Now we're not doing an upgrade, so we're going to do an install. So generally I just click on custom, and you can see that it's picked up our 200 gig VDI file that we set up in the earlier video. Drive 0, unallocated space. Disk drives always start with a 0, partitions start with a 1. We've got one drive and we're going to have a single partition. So we're going to select 200 gig as the size of the disk, although we know from the fact that it's a dynamic disk, it will not require that. And in fact, if we want to, we can simply go and have a look at where we installed the initial install, and you can see virtual machine, virtual boxes. And if we look at base server, there is our virtual machine disk itself. Okay, so there's our VDI file, and as you can see here, it's 2 meg in size. We'll have a look at that when we're finished and see how it's increased in size. So once we've selected the disk we want to use, we go next, and basically we let it start reading the information, copying the files, getting ready for installation, installing the features, installing updates, finishing up. And basically you can go and have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea at this stage because it will take a while to complete. Once all the files are done and it's finished up, we'll be presented a screen that will ask us for a new password for the administrator account. After the initial install is done, you'll be restarting the computer, and the computer will restart and show you this screen here. Type password for the built-in administrator account that you can use to sign into this computer. Every Windows server will have a built-in administrator, and you put your password in. Confirm your password, and in just in case you're wondering, this is the password that I've used. Capital P, small a, 55w.rd. The password I've used, and you click finish to finalize your settings. It's a good idea at this stage to go to the menu on top called Devices, and in Devices go to Optical Drives and remove the disk from the virtual drive. Otherwise, every time you restart Windows, it will try and install from the ISO. So we're removing the virtual disk, so therefore we no longer have an ISO. Once we get the Control-Alt-Delete to sign in. Remember that you're working with a virtual machine. On the very bottom area here, where you have your menu bar for VirtualBox, you'll see that it gives you what's called a host key, which is, in our case, a right control key, one beside to the right of the space bar. It may be Control, it may be Alt-GR. That and Delete will give you a login. Optionally, you've got an input menu up here where you can go to Keyboard, and you'll see the same thing here. The host key, that is our right Alt, our right control key, plus Delete. So if I use my host key, the right control key, and Delete, I should get a menu item coming up. And if not, Keyboard, Control-Alt-Delete, host and Delete, and I'm prompted for my login. Once I type in my password, the one that we just saw, I should get a new Windows Server screen, and we will continue on in our next video looking at the configuration of the server from its initial installation. So once this loads up, you will have your Windows Server 2012. It may say license expired, but it will pop up in the next restart with 180 days. This network discovery is simply telling you that you are going onto a public network and you'll be able to discover other devices on the network. By default, it opens up in what's called Server Manager, and when we click on Local Server, we can get a summary view of our initial configuration of the server. And as I said, we will continue on from there in the next video.